Welcome to This Week in Stump the Pastor. Today's question comes from Mark in Nevada. And Mark's question is God omnipotent? Does God know all past, present, and future? Well, thanks for sending your question, Mark. Although Mark lives in Nevada now, we are actually friends from our days in Minneapolis. So, hey, Mark. You know, much of classic Christian theology has revolved around these three O's. Is God omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient? And it's easy to get these three confused, so just a quick reminder. Omnipotent means all-powerful. Omnipresent means everywhere. And omniscient means all-knowing. Now, theologians have struggled with these concepts for centuries and come up with all sorts of combinations of one and not others and so forth. But most of this theological consternation is based on what I believe to be a faulty assumption. And that is that we tend to think of God in human analogies. And that makes sense, right? Because that's all we know is our human experience. But if the God that Moses served is I am, and the God that Jesus proclaimed is love, spirit, and truth, then maybe we should take our cues from them. But I can hear some of you saying, of course, Jesus called God Abba, Father. So why can't we attribute human characteristics to God? And we can, as long as we remember that those attributes are always metaphorical. God is like a father. God is also like a rock. God's like a mother eagle that teaches her young to fly. When we forget the like, though, we are in danger of creating an idol, thinking that a metaphor is absolute. Now remember, God told Moses in the Ten Commandments to create no graven image of God. Aha. So God speaks like humans. Sure, metaphorically. But think about this for a second. How would your relationship to God be different if instead of God being all-powerful, for example, God is all-knowing, or God is all-loving? Instead of God being all-knowing, God is all-spirit. Instead of God being everywhere, God is all-available. It may seem like a petty difference, but think about what our names for God reveal. Is God all-powerful so that our enemies will be punished? Do we need an always present God so that we will feel guilty about our lapses? You see, none of our names or labels or assumptions about God will ever be able to encapsulate this reality that we metaphorically call God. That's why we have so many names for God. The Bible is full of them. But knowing just might be the 21st century's main idol. We have this need to know. Knowledge has greatly impacted our society. I mean, we have great universities and wonderful research labs and some of the greatest minds in history solving problems and cures and equations that have never been conceived before. And all these milestones are wonderful for human existence and possibilities. And none of them can capture the reality of God. I know, it's so frustrating, right? None of them define God. Just remember, even though we don't have the ability to define God, we experience God all the time. When we love, when someone cares about what is happening to us, when we glimpse beauty and stop to be grateful, when we wish the best for another, when we have our breath taken away by vistas, insight, or amazement, when we feel the presence. None of these can be measured. They can only be experienced. God cannot be qualified. God can only be experienced. And trust me when I tell you this, when it happens, you will know you've experienced the presence of God. You can label the experience whatever you would like. The label is not the experience, and the experience is not the label. And one last thing. The experience can transform everything about you. See you next time. Stump the Pastor. So what do you think, Mark? I hope I answered your question. And if any of you have questions, please send them to me. I enjoy being able to have all the kinds of questions that come to your mind, because the only way we learn is to ask our questions. You can send them to my email address, pagnestucker@gmail.com. See you next time on Stump the Pastor.